That was fast.
Normal people, but I knew it was gonna be there last night. I straight up told my boyfriend, I'm like, he's like, go have fun. Like, he's so.
Yeah, yet again, usual thing. You know, guys will do this thing all the time. Throw themselves down the stairs after breaking both their knees and their hands. Typical case.
Wow, so there it is. We are getting details of potential gunshot wounds to the back of the head. 2 of them follow-up shots before throwing themselves down the stairs and breaking both their knees. Again, this is developing, but we will get back to you when we have more information. Back to you, Anita Dix.
Since its release in 2015 at SHOT Show, the MCX has showed up in a number of high-speed cool guys' hands. Anywhere from the UK CTSFO to DevGru guys running some variation of the MCX platform. In 2022, SIG Sauer released the MCX SPEAR-LT. Now, when it comes to high-speed cool guys, I'm often fascinated by what they are using, and for good reason. They have a very professional organization. They are often considered the cream of the crop, the tip of the spear, doing a whole bunch of different mission sets and dangerous work all around. And for them to take an interest in a certain firearms platform, it also piques my interest. And there's a lot of trickle down throughout multiple facets of firearms industries and communities. If the high-speed cool guys adopt something, chances are it'll trickle down to law enforcement, and then that will trickle down to the civilians, and there's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of civilians that enjoy cloning military rifles or have a general interest in military rifles themselves, I being one of them. Delta Force operators were seen using the LVAW. I call it the LVAW. It's a low visibility assault weapon. Essentially, it's a 6-inch something MCX 300 blackout with a suppressor tucked rail going over it. Now, that was a slight inspiration for the rifle that we're going over today, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Now, 300 blackout was developed by AAC, Advanced Armament Corporation. The goal was a round with more capabilities than a 9mm and quieter and more reliable to use in shorter barrels than, say, a 5.56. And I think they definitely accomplished it. Now, the round itself is considered a 30 cal round, which we're using a 30 cal can for it. I think the idea of 300 blackout is really cool. I think there's a lot of really interesting fringe benefits, and it's kind of a step into the future direction of PDW weapons. There are some drawbacks, but of course we'll get into it. Now, a big benefit of that 300 blackout round is that it's quiet. And we're gonna actually demonstrate that for you right now. And now for a quick ballistic demonstration. Analog number 1, the watermelon. The superior analog for gun tubers. Up first, 110 grain VMAX, 300 blackout. Right. Impressive, juicy. Our next analog has me bricked. A cement brick, a common construction tool here in Arizona. If you look at the suburbs of Phoenix or whatever city surrounds it, you will see a sea of these style bricks in backyards. I find it fascinating, and I'm often curious about the ballistic potential of a round when it comes to these. I'm switching grains on the 300 blackout. We're going to a 220 grain. It should be subsonic, quiet, and have a little bit more mass in the projectile. The goal is destruction. On the watermelon, we use the VMAX, 110 grain. On this, we're going heavier. 220 grains. That's why you wear iPro. I hit the center of the cement brick, hitting the divider, and there was no penetration to the other side. Quiet. It's always a plane. Let me go over right more. Another one! So, we are getting buzzed by the enemy Air Force. It broke the cement brick, but from where I shot it in the angle, there is no penetration on the back side. These things continue to show how robust and rugged they can be. Good backstops in case you have to get into a home defense shooting here in Arizona, I guess. 3 licks to get to the center of the lollipop. Now, the report from a subsonic 300 blackout at the barrel is very quiet, but what does it sound like when you're getting shot at by one? Got a target out there at about maybe 100 yards. Quiet. Now let's try 9mm. Very respectful decibel levels. and probably the loudest of the bunch. Well, probably, definitely the loudest of the bunch. 77 grain, 5.56. Now we have to see the results. The administrative results. Oh! While you had premarital sex, I was training the way of the blade. And now that the enemy is at the gates, you come to me? Gentlemen, I must stop this video to tell you about something cool. I have partnered with TOOR knives to bring a blade to the market. I've been a massive fan of TOOR knives for years now, actually. Well before I was even doing gun YouTube things, I have owned their knives. And so for me, this is a dream come true, and I think we're bringing a very cool blade to the market. To tattle on myself, I'm not a massive knife guy or a knife nerd, but like any dude, I love me a sick blade. And I think we built out a rather sick blade, and above all, it looks freaking dope. The knife has an overall length of 8 inches. Blade length's 4 inches, the handle is another 4. Handle material, ebony or ironwood steel. CPM 154, blade thickness 0.188 inches. Blade hardness 59 to 61 Rockwell, and it weighs 5.3 ounces. It'll come with a Kydex sheath. The attachments are not included because everyone likes to rig up their knife or attach it to them in a different way. So figure it out. But I am very proud. Go head over to TOOR Knives. The knife name I'm actually pretty proud of. I thought of, it's called the Administrator. Yeah, I know. I like it. I like it too. I hate the name. I hate the name, it's so dumb. Now, in the brief history of the MCX, it was released at SHOT Show of 2015. This was a little bit before my time of going really all in on firearms culture and taking a big fascination. I'm still relatively a young guy, despite me aging rapidly by life. Pain. I have yet to find the fountain of youth, my brothers. It's part of being mortal, and it would capture the hearts and minds of gun enthusiasts ever since. Of course, like I said earlier, showing up, being used by a lot of high-speed cool guys. It'll be adopted by groups of the military, groups of law enforcement, and it would sweep through the civilian firearms ownership crowd rather rapidly.
Yep. America's rights protected, insurgents dead. America's safe.
Personally, I knew and still know a bunch of guys that run the MCX in some configuration as their go-to rifle, whether it be 5.56. Typically for a go-to rifle, all these guys are using 5.56, or they have general interest in a 300 Blackout and is a very popular 300 Blackout host. There are a number of variations of the MCX. There's the OG MCX, there's the MCX Virtus, there's the MCX Rattler,
the MCX Spear, which the Army has adopted. That one comes in 7.62x51, as well as the 6.8x51.
and we have the MCX SPEAR-LT that we got right here. And then of course amongst those, there's all the different barrel lengths configurations and pistol configurations that you could get into. When I got this from my LGS, it was an e-pistol configuration, and then I did some paperwork and we got an little SBR here. Now, to the MCX's credit, and this is something that I'm very fascinated by, is how do firearms often appear in pop culture? I think pop culture is a massive inspiration for guys when they get into firearms, whether it be video games, movies, TV shows, and guys get the bug in their head for starting the inception idea of getting into firearms. I think it's fun. I think it's neat. Now, the more original MCXs have actually popped up in a lot of pop culture. When it came out, I could see the appeal because it is a rather cool looking gun. The MCX Virtus would also pop up in a number of pop culture. It comes to mind, I think, of Modern Warfare 2019. It was in that game, and I thought it was pretty cool because they had some fun configurations, except for it was like the Template Cyclone that had like the SD setup. It looks like on the suppressor, there's like carvings in the side of the can to make it fit because the handguard isn't like a fat handguard like this that can easily slide over the suppressor can slide in. So I was thinking, like, how do they assemble that thing if you can't put the rail over it, but you also have to screw on a suppressor? I was confused, and I don't know if they know what they were doing. I just thought they were like, well, we have this handguard and we want to put a suppressor and it looks cool, so let's just make it fit. Anyway, does that make sense? You'll see it when you do your editing. My editor's behind that camera. Wave, everybody. You're a man of culture. Well, as far as the MCX SPEAR-LT, it's relatively new and hasn't popped up in as much pop culture, but it has showed up in the show Lioness, and I think it's even been added into some video games, which I think is rather interesting. Now, I haven't watched the Lioness yet. I've been too busy watching other things like, I don't know, Finding Nemo, Lord of the Rings, Avatar, Game of Thrones, for no particular reason at all. Now we get to my rifle in particular, a 9-inch 300 blackout gun, and there were some things that I did to it. When I got it, it had the OG rail. Like I said, got it as a pistol, did the paperwork. I wanted to run a can with it already, so then I had a can on hand. Running the Diligent Defense 30 cal can, I think it works. Got a mod light, weapon light on there. Knock off Somo Gear Ingall because it's funny, and despite my YouTube empire, sometimes I like to cut corners on costs where I can. It's working. So far, it's working. But it's just for airsoft. It's only for airsoft. Got the mod light hot button. Now, typically when I run rifles, I don't like to do a pressure switch because I have found them to be risky in the sense that they may fail or you may ND it, but this is getting into some of the nuances of a gun guy's thought process, and so typically I'll just run a tail cap. For something like this, the goal was to build out like a NATO Death Trooper murder gun, where if someone was spilling state secrets, the NATO Death Trooper goons would show up and make your death look like a or something. Then we have an EOTech EXPS-3 on a Unity mount, along with a EOTech G33 in a Unity mount, or the Unity flip up. And then we have the MCX, I can't remember the name of this stock. It's like the minimalist stock, I wanna say. The only thing I did to the gun was, I believe I swapped out the safety selector for a 45-degree throw. Well, there's two things I guess I did to the gun. I put on the Virtus rail. Now the Virtus rail is a massively aesthetically pleasing aspect of this gun. And I really wanted to have a rail shroud over the suppressor for a gun like this because, fellas, it looks sick, dude. It just looks so freaking cool. It is undeniably very hot. Now, getting back to the inspiration for the gun. So the LVAW is a low visibility assault weapon that has been seen used in the hands of Delta Force operatives doing missions out in the wild. I think most notably they were protecting General Miller, I believe in Afghanistan, and it sparked a massive interest. I knew guys that were going buck wild over the LVAW. The LVAW is pretty freaking sick. It looks super duper cool. You could LARP extra hard and quietly in your mother's basement. The only aspect of the inspiration for this build was the fact that that LVAW rail covers up the suppressor, giving you more rail space for attachments. That was the catalyst of the idea. For this, I wasn't trying to go with a specific LVAW clone because the rail for that is like something completely different. I'm totally blanking on, we'll put an editor's note in, but I wanted the idea behind that because I think it's cool. I like the idea of having an extended rail that goes over the suppressor because you get more rail space out of it. The OG rail was pretty short and I was fighting for a lot of real estate on that rail for if I wanted to mount up the laser or the light and for hand placement along with the sling. I found that kind of frustrating. Now on this rail, it does come with sling mounts, but I find them a little bit close for where I like to run it. So I have a Magpul sling point up there with the QD, and I run the other sling point on the other side over here. Details. You're here for details. You're gonna get them. To be honest, I forgot I didn't have ear pro. You know, when it gets into the SIG MCX and the whole SIG line of firearms, there is the talk of the controversy of guns not being optimal, guns kind of sucking off the rip, and them doing like beta testing on their customer base. And I get it. If you have a distaste in SIG Sauer, I totally get it. As someone that does firearms, I try to look at as many guns as possible, and this was one of them. From what I was guessing, from what I was seeing, I feel like they have rectified a lot of problems. To be fair, that was after like 9 tries. That one felt good. I will say it feels like they've rectified a lot of problems for the round count that we have on this, which I would guess is around 3,000 rounds, which isn't a lot, but 300 blackout's expensive, and I guarantee most people won't shoot that much 300 blackout, most folks, because it is rather pricey round. Now with this Virtus rail, I have an Arisaka clamp on it because from what I was reading, from talking to buddies like my buddy Joel of Auto Weapons Works, and he's sometimes one of my go-to guys for really getting into nuanced things because I'm just a borderline dummy. Well, I'm a dummy, you gotta own that. With those Virtus rails, it was a issue of IR lasers, retaining zero, stuff like that. So if I wanted to throw some sort of aiming device on this, I figured, well, let's get that Arisaka barrel clamp, and it feels pretty freaking rock steady on the gun. The newer rail, I think, was pretty sick and a very well thought out design, but I wanted something that looks like this. Wow. Bro's really talking a lot. Now on the gun, the controls are ambidextrous, and I think they did a good job. The bolt release I will say, is a cool feature, but where it sits, I have a hard time retraining that muscle memory to think if I want to go for it. I would guess my left-handed guys, it's a sick option once you get that mag up and in to hit that. I think that's cool that the gun industry is catering to the left-handed shooter. You know, when you're off from the freak circus and you're not working, go hit the range and shoot your left-handed guns. I'm trying out the ambidextrous bolt release. It's very foreign, so trying it out, it's a little bit clunky. I think you'd have to work up your muscle memory, but I'm so used to just hitting the paddle with my reload hand that I feel like it's just an unnecessary skill to learn for it. That's it, I'm doing mag paddle. I am much more accustomed to the mag paddle over there. Now, it is a 9-inch barrel. And talking to guys, getting their opinion on things, they were saying for something like this, it's kind of overkill when you get into the subsonic round of performance from a 9-inch barrel for 300 blackout. You know, if I'm being brutally honest, I would say my skill set is not in that, you know, being a ballistician of some kind when it comes to the nuances of that. I didn't know any better when I got it, and I didn't want like a rattler because I liked how cool the SPEAR-LT looked, and I wanted to get into 300 blackout. It was kind of like 2 stones, 1 bird. Looking back, I think I would go even shorter, and I may swap out the barrel, but who's to say, because this isn't that bad. I don't mind it as much. I am not one that's like always chasing as short of a barrel as possible. I think short barrel guns are cool. All that to say, I think I would rather go slightly shorter, considering that I would like this more in the PDW home defense realm. And having a compact gun like that, you know, more the merrier. And you get more suppressor inside of the rail to look cooler. Because I want to look cool for the bros at the flat range when I show up to LARP and shoot, so they can know that I maxed out my credit cards. Not really. I'm financially responsible. I was acting. Gentlemen, this video was made possible thanks to Americana Pipe Dream Apparel. Fantastic young Zoomers getting after the milsurp space and arena. They have all the things to take your LARPing wardrobe to the next level. Not only do they have milsurp clothing, they have night vision, knives, manuals, and now they even have e-bikes. So you have a wide option of interest that you can get into thanks to them, and they have been a wonderful sponsor for a while. Optics. Optics Planet is the optics sponsor of Administrative Results. Big thank you to those guys. And of course, we have to give a big thank you to Badlands Ammo, the ammo sponsor of the channel. I thoroughly enjoy those gentlemen. They are local Arizona friends of mine. I have been shooting with them for years, and now they are sponsoring the channel with ammo, and they want to equip you with a wonderful amount of ammo. And I love them. I'm in love with them. I am. What are you gonna do about it? I think there's a lot of cool things going on with the MCX. I think the short stroke gas piston system kind of being that more updated version of an AR-180 operating system. You know, how you can fold the stock. There's replaceable parts on the gun for wear and tear. I think it's cool. I think it's fun getting away from certain AR-15 style direct impingement guns and getting into something that is just a little bit more new, a little bit more fresh, and still works. I had really little issues with the gun. I had 1 double feed and it was quickly cleared. Oh, double feed. You caught it on camera. That may have even been a magazine problem. Another thing on the mags is that with 300 blackout, you can run the traditional STANAG mag. I typically like to run purpose-built 7.62 by 35 P mags. Thank God it's on the mag, because I totally forgot for a second. It's a 7.62 by 35 millimeter round, but I like to run purpose-built 300 blackout mags. As someone that has a plethora of firearms, I only use these for 300 blackout, and I only use those other mags for 5.56, and that way there's no mix-up, because we want to minimize chances of catastrophe happening. Ruin my day. So another thing I saw, I think it was either with the MCXs or the MCX Spears LTs, was a barrel bend where the barrel wasn't returning to where it should if you bent it. That's a big deal. I think they have corrected that. When I got this, I actually tried it out, and of course the 300 blackout 30 cal barrel, like, it wasn't moving at all, but I was curious. I wanted to know. Touching back on the aesthetics things, because I think the look of firearms is really important, because probably 90% of the 2A firearms citizen culture revolves around like a fashion show. So if you look really cool, then you're winning. It doesn't matter how good you can shoot or how in shape you are. If you look cool, it's all that matters. Insider knowledge. You're welcome. Does that sound jaded? Maybe I am jaded. Maybe I'm a little, I've been doing this for a number of years now. I've seen how it works. I gotta give him props, man. I think SIG absolutely crushed the design of the gun, especially with the SIG SPEAR-LT, the MCX, whatever the hell you wanna call it. When I look at it, when I stare at it for long durations of times, the curves, the lines, the anodizing, sorry Colton, he wants me to get the sun on it. It looks freaking sick. The rail going over the suppressor, and I gotta give myself a pat on the back with the color scheme of the optics and the lights and the laser. I think it looks freaking dope. I like it a lot. I think they crushed it. If you want a cool looking gun, I think this may be something you should holler at if you so desire. And it's in that NATO Death Trooper caliber of 300 Blackout. Practicality wise, if we're looking at the cold hard facts about this, how does this stack up? In a lot of ways. Well, like I said, it has a steep price tag. So if you're someone balling on a budget, I would definitely not go down a 300 Blackout route. I'm typically someone to say that it's a buy once, cry once. Yeah, things may be expensive, but if you pull the trigger on quality, then, you know, you're not hurting as bad in the long term. There are plenty of uber cheap AR-15s that you can build out. We've kind of covered it before. And if that's all that you can afford, hey, I get it, you know, build up that financial wealth till you're better off. But if you have the dough for higher end things, of course, hop on in. Now, quickly diverting off of practicality, I wanted to talk about where the gun excels because it ties back into the practicality. But with the 300 Blackout round, it excels in shorter barrels. I was talking to my camera guy on the drive here. He was like, well, would anyone really want to run it in a longer barrel? And I think you absolutely could. I don't see why not. You still get a 30 cal projectile. It's typically not done a lot, but I think it's an interesting concept if you had a longer barrel 300 Blackout using not just subsonic rounds, but supersonic rounds. I think that would be a neat concept. Now, mostly the big allure and draw of 300 Blackout, if you're totally unaware, is the reliability and the ballistic performance from shorter barrels, making it a very sought after PDW platform, because the idea is to get the gun nice and compact. You have a 30 cal round, it's nice and quiet, it performs ballistically well, a lot of benefits. Now, how that ties into practicality is, I would say, if you're someone that is worried about your local HOA powers parachuting into your area and you have to now get into rolling gunfights, I would say a 300 Blackout platform is probably not your go-to. What the gun feels like in regards to the 300 Blackout, like a setup like this, is it really does feel like peak PDW for personal security work, peak home defense gun, or peak I am going to come cleanse your house in the middle of the night, Call of Duty clean house raid mission style. That's what the gun really seems to excel at in my mind. I also think it's probably a sick round for hunting because it's a 30 cal. Like, I think it's probably fun to like smoke hogs. I haven't tried it yet. I would guess though. But as far as like rolling gunfight, the apocalypse is happening, whatever your LARP scenario is, where you want to carry a bunch of rounds on you, I still think 5.56 is king in that aspect. You can carry just so much 5.56. It's widely abundant here in the United States. There's so much logistic infrastructure for AR-15s. It's a no-brainer. Now, despite me poo-pooing on the gun in some regards, I guess, and highlighting the aspects of others, I will say we have this beautiful thing called the Second Amendment. And if you want something like this, you should have it. You should get it. It's cool. You only got one of these things called your life, and if you want a cool weapons platform in it, then I think you should go buck wild. Gentlemen, thanks for tuning in to this episode. Got nothing else for you. I'll catch you on the flip. Damn you, sir! Don't you know I'm making a B-grade production YouTube video?